Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, I was in Las Vegas this weekend, and I'm gonna admit something to you. I gambled. I gambled on machines, and I gambled at tables. I gambled at bars, and I gambled in the sports betting room. Sports betting went from something that maybe some people would do once a year when they went to Vegas to something that is advertised on seemingly every sports event in every league across the country, something that's already taken over elsewhere in the world. And ladies and gentlemen, one of our favorite content creators, Wendover Productions, just put out a video about it that I've heard bangs.
People didn't get rich off fantasy sports, nor did they lose thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of dollars in one fell swoop. Fantasy team owners wagered on season-long outcomes with their friends from school or work and poured over stat sheets for bragging rights as much as money.
True.
They might have been obsessed, but they were never quite addicted.
My fantasy team this year looking kind of schnasty, Chad.
Then, in 2009...
Don't call that a cum stash. It was obviously a milk commercial.
A fateful backyard brainstorm at South by Southwest completely altered the trajectory of fantasy sports and, as it would turn out, sports betting. The company that coalesced under the Austin sun was called FanDuel, and it was everything that fantasy wasn't. Countering the traditional season-long league, FanDuel offered daily fantasy. Rather than just playing with your buddies...
It's crazy that that's all it took. They look at this and they're like, hey, fantasy sports isn't included. Fantasy takes too long, so we wouldn't make any money if we put like bets on it. What about daily fantasy? That idea like shifted the whole paradigm. It changed everything.
It was online and in your pocket. What had been slow-moving and cumbersome was now fast and convenient. Just play from your phone, win, and cash out that very same day. Young people
also, the fact that you can do it from your phone is probably what really got it like taking hold, right? It's so easy, like, oh, I'm gonna watch this game tonight. Oh, I can make a wager or two. Let me check my phone, see what's happening. Oh, if I put in $10, they're gonna match my $10. Well, if this guy scores 2 touchdowns, I make $100. This seems like a really reasonable thing for me to do.
Suddenly, companies that didn't exist just years prior were outspending the entire beer industry, running ads every 90 seconds on national TV. With palm-of-your-hand convenience, cheap buy-ins, mouth-watering prize potential, and unavoidable promotional offers,
it's actually crazy as someone who likes sports and is of means that I've never downloaded FanDuel or DraftKings or any of those apps.
As the American Gaming Association estimated that Americans were spending about $150 billion on wagers annually, with only a small fraction actually going through legal means in Nevada. Then finally, the head of the NBA came out and said it. If Americans were spending billions on sports bets, American newspapers and media
said two things. Adam Silver said the biggest innovations in the NBA are going to be making the product delivery more similar to Twitch and adding sports betting. That was his 2 big things, and he's got the sports betting going. You're going to have a goddamn live chat on NBA TV soon.
Betting lines, and other countries were finding success in regulating nationwide gambling. Then why not just legalize it? Legalized sports betting, they pitched, would bring tax revenue by the millions. And besides, they argued, people were betting illegally anyway. Why not bring it above?
You know what's been really interesting? I read this article. I don't know how it's true. Maybe if we have any Kiwis in the chat, you can let me know. That New Zealand is working to ban cigarettes completely, tobacco completely in the country, and the way they're doing it is you must be this old, not by age, but by year born. So right now, if you're 21 years old, you can buy cigarettes, but anyone younger than you will never be able to buy cigarettes, even if they're 60. It's such a cool idea. It just passed. There you go. What fascinating. What made me think of that is they were talking about these lobbyists convincing the lawmakers, the people in government, to allow sports gambling because of the tax money. And one of the big hits to New Zealand is going to be things like the exorbitant tax on tobacco products that they will no longer be getting. But the trade-off is, hey, these people are going to live longer lives, are going to pay more to taxes in the long term, we're going to spend less on healthcare and things like that, versus making, $5 per pack of cigarettes, whatever it is. Really interesting. Really interesting.
By 2022, 30 US states and Washington, D.C. had some form of legal and active sports betting.
Wow.
And this wasn't the sports betting of old. This was sports betting in the digital age. In 2019, US betting revenue doubled that of 2018. Then 2020, despite sports as an entity disappearing globally for a matter of months, saw revenue nearly double once again.
Ooh.
And in 2021, revenue tripled to over $4.3 billion a year. Simply put, sports betting just exploded. Or at least,
Someone in chat brings up a good point, like the no. So they're talking about the fact that an increase or a tax on these unhealthy items like cigarettes, or one of the things that was going around when I lived in Northern California was a sugar tax on soda, other sugary drinks, and that those kind of taxes disproportionately affect the poor, right? The people who are more likely to buy like a soda every day or to buy cigarettes are people that may be in these situations. But I could never tell if that was lobbying by the soda companies or if it was something that's real. So if you have any data on it, I'd love to read it. I can't tell if I'm being shoveled pig shit by fucking big Coca-Cola or if it actually does disproportionately affect them.
A huge additional chunk of this growth was precipitated by a...
Yes. I know that like everyone knows this, but I just feel like even more and more recently I've come to internalize it, but every fucking company ever's photo is the same 17 white guys, some with glasses, some without. That's it. Sometimes you have bad haircuts, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have glasses, sometimes you don't. Even off-brand. It's just like, hey, here's the same 17 white guys rotating through. Look at them. They started another fucking app that's predatory. Wow. This could be a fucking NFT company. This could be a crypto company. This could be an online gambling company. This could be a fucking craft brewing company.
The industry was gifted a massive opportunity: the COVID-19 pandemic. With the world of sports reopening into a new, less physical, less social context, the industry realized it could capitalize on the degraded fan experience to effectively manufacture a new normal. Spend was slowly and steadily growing pre-pandemic, but come Q3 2020, as the NHL, NBA, and MLB restarted their seasons
oh my God, it was going up.
Of biosecure bubbles, the industry spent 3 times more than any prior quarter on TV advertising.
Interesting. Oh, on advertising. Sorry, I thought that was online gambling.
Everywhere. FanDuel adorned the boards around the NHL's pandemic-proof rink in Edmonton, on screens sitting where the NBA's courtside seats would normally go, on the pitcher's mound at MLB ballparks, and anywhere else where a competitor hadn't already inked a deal. With the knowledge that their most promising customer demographic was 18 to 35-year-old men, based on their above-average propensity to develop long-term, potentially addictive gambling habits, companies...
Where's this B-roll from? Why does this guy look so uncomfortable? He looks like he's waiting for the results of a paternity test.
Based on their above...
Oh, Linda, I hope you text me soon.
...average propensity to develop long-term, potentially addictive gambling...
This is the results.
...habits. If an algorithm predicts that a player is likely to stop betting after a string of losses, which some can with remarkable accuracy, it'll automatically offer a risk-free bet. If they lose the next one, they'll get their money back. But the terms will indicate the money returned can't be withdrawn. It has to be spent on another bet. After 2 additional bets, there's every chance the player wins one and decides to keep going, but even if they don't, they've gotten back into the groove of it, so even given the high cost of this inducement, the economics work out in aggregate so that free bets are a winning proposition for the gambling companies.
Well, yeah, obviously they're not going to give you free money to gamble with unless they know that the LTV or like lifetime value of you as a customer is going to pay for that. The money that they are giving you is the losses of other gamblers or even you in the future.
Systems are just incredibly effective at forming a habit in their players in a cost-effective manner. Unsurprisingly,
although I will say, little story, my dad's side of the family did break the casino once. They had a program where people above 50 got $10 of free play a day. And what they would do is they would carpool all of them to the casino, play their $10, not put another dollar in, and leave. And they did it every single day, and they did it for months, and they tracked their winnings. And it was in the hundreds of dollars, which is nothing, not much. But when you're old and retired, it's like kind of a funny thing you could do. The casino actually stopped the promotion because I assume more people were doing that.
No population loses more to gambling than Australia's.
Oh.
Each adult resident averages
Australians stay losing
over $1,000 a year in loss, a clean doubling of America's equivalent figure.
Oh.
And the explanation is concerningly straightforward. In the US, casinos are a destination. From the center of New York City, the closest proper one is a 50-minute trek into Queens. From Dallas, it's an 80-minute drive north to Chickasaw Land in Oklahoma. From San Francisco, it's a similar 60-minute drive north into Sonoma County.
Okay.
In Australia, however, casinos are city center attractions. Even Las Vegas separates the bulk of its casinos away from the city center. In Australia, they're tough to avoid. Gambling doesn't have to be purposefully planned. It can simply be spontaneous, a convenient, accessible way to turn one's day around for the better, or more often, worse. But the concerning convenience compounds. Across the country,
I don't know if it was like a family member or someone else, or maybe my brain just isn't wired that way, but very early on in my like gambling career or in my life, I was always told like, hey, gambling is entertainment. You will lose. I got the train talk. You will lose. And so only bring the money you're meant to lose and have a good time with it. And I've always done that. I've always lost, but I've had a good time. I lost a few racks in Vegas this last week and I had a great time. I didn't want to go like load up and go again, but I think they prey on the people who maybe don't have that little like synaptic connection and who are willing to go for it.
But there is still one final step in the gambling industry's grand plan. People gamble more when it's convenient. We know that people play more when they live closer to pokie machines. We know that people sports bet more where they can do so on their phones. And so the gambling industry knows what their biggest legislative win to date would be: iGaming. That's the technical term for the broad bucket of chance-based gambling, roulette, slots, bingo, and more, taking place on the internet or apps. This would create a problem. Time and...
Dude, that would be such a fucking nightmare. And I like gambling, but the amount of people who would be like gambling with significant sums of money that they don't have to gamble on their phones on like the bus and shit. Ugh.
It can be a fun social way of upping the emotional stakes of the viewing experience, but far too often, it fails to hit the mark. Faced with few roadblocks and increasingly capable of knocking the remaining ones down, the industry is doing what industry does: finding and following the greatest possible revenue opportunity by turning the US into a nation of addicts.
Sports gambling, terrifying. All these industries that prey on citizens, also terrifying. What can we do about it? It feels like nothing, because all of our politicians are in their pocket, they're paying them tons of money, and the capitalists are winning. Wish I had a brighter note to go out on. I have no idea. I studied political science for 4 years, and at the end of it, I threw up my hands and said, this is kind of crinky dink. Started becoming a Twitch streamer. Oopsies.